Good evening. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Poonam Burde. It's been approximately 28 hours since the Balochistan Liberation Army insurgents stopped a long-distance train in a rugged and mountainous area south of Quetta. They took passengers hostage. So far, 190 of them out of the 400 that were on board that particular train are out of this Baloch Rebel Army's clutches. While the BLA says that they have released them as a sign or a gesture of humanity, the Pakistani army says that it was the military operation that ensured safety for these passengers. The operation also resulted in the death of 30 Baloch rebels as per the Pakistan administration. As per the Baloch rebels, several of Pakistani army personnel have been killed. So the number and the narrative changes based on who you're speaking with. But one thing that no one will deny is that this perhaps is the most audacious attacks in recent years. The group has splintered over time. Its leadership has largely operated from exile, and yet the Baloch Liberation Army has managed to mobilize not just support on ground, but also get men and women on board who are ready to give up their life for this cause. The BLA traces ideological roots to decades-long Baloch nationalist movement, which seeks greater autonomy for that particular region. They do not want to be part of Pakistan. They want to be an independent nation. They feel betrayed by their founding fathers, oppressed by the state for all these decades since 1947, and now they feel exploited specifically by China with all of its infrastructure projects that are coming up in the Balochistan region. The frustration of the Baloch people has boiled over, and how? As several continue to remain in Baloch Liberation Army's captivity, the Pakistani army has now launched an operation and is trying to make some sort of progress. In a video that was released by Balochistan Post that we have accessed for you, that you see on your screens, there are visuals of the very tunnel where these hostages were being held captive. This tunnel is where these Baloch rebels held the train. Meanwhile, Pakistani army helicopters can be seen hovering over. Now, the Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif condemned what he called was a cowardly attack. He also said that they will continue their fight against this monster of terrorism. But at the moment, it looks like they do not have the upper hand because, like I said, 28 hours later, there are still many hostages in the Liberation Army's captivity. But now this is not the first time that we've seen such attacks. The Baloch Liberation Army has been involved in several in the past. Specifically, as far as the Dhadar port is concerned and China's involvement there, that's something that has irked the local tribes there, the local people there, and given ammunition to the Liberation Army. The BLA has targeted infrastructure and personnel that have been associated with the CPEC projects. In August 2024, the BLA claimed responsibility for a series of coordinated attacks across the region of Balochistan. They've been targeting Chinese nationals as well. It's not just infrastructure or the CPEC project, but also Chinese officials, Chinese laborers who are in Pakistan working on these CPEC projects have been targeted by the BLA. Now, like I said, this Baloch dispute in Pakistan is a long-standing one. There's a complex history to it as well. It dates back to the region's forced integration into Pakistan in 1948. The Khanat of Kalat initially declared independence but was pressured to accede to Pakistan by the founding fathers like Muhammad Ali Jinnah back then. This led to the first wave of armed resistance. There were subsequent insurgencies that occurred in different decades. In 1958, from 1963 to 69, then again in 73 to 77. Each of these periods was marked by escalating violence. There was growing unrest from different Baloch tribes. The current insurgency, which began in 2003, is fueled by grievances over resource exploitation and marginalization of Baloch people. It comes at a time when there are several major Chinese projects like the CPEC that are coming up. The Baloch people believe that China and Pakistan, a country that they believe oppresses them, is looting their resources, not leaving any to the locals there. They are unhappy specifically with the CPEC project. There are several reasons for it. They feel, like I said, that the natural resources of that particular region, which are meant for the locals, are being exploited by China and Pakistan without benefiting the local population at all. The influx of workers from other parts of Pakistan outside of the Balochistan region and from China make the Baloch tribes and the people minority in their own region. That's something that is problematic for them as well. These projects are also seen as consolidation of federal control over Balochistan. The federal government of Pakistan is something that the Baloch people, specifically the Baloch Liberation Army, have rejected outrightly. They undermine our local autonomy, is what the Liberation Army and the Baloch tribes have been insisting on for decades together. Now, that is the history. But did Pakistan, the Pakistani army, the government not see this coming? Were they not prepared? And is Pakistan reaping what it sowed? That's the question we ask on Plain Speak.
स्टेशन क्रॉस किया हमने, उसके 15-20 मिनट बाद, आधे घंटे के बाद ये बस से हादसा हुआ हमारे साथ।
सर हम लोग को छोड़ दिया, फिर बोला आप लोग जाएं भाई, अपना रास्ता पकड़े निकलते थे, आप लोग के साथ दुश्मनी नहीं है।
जो युद्ध चल रहा वहाँ पर है, अभी पाकिस्तान आर्मी भी खुद यूज़ कर रहा है, उनकी ड्रोन भी यूज़ कर रहे हैं, टैंक भी यूज़ कर रहे हैं, अटैक हो रहा है, चल रहा रहेगा।
6 to 7 districts of Balochistan have total control of terrorists. There is no control of the Pakistan government or the Pakistan army.
मेरे ख्याल में किसी कभी भी जब आप आँख से खेलते हैं ना, आपके हाथ जलते हैं कभी ना कभी।
Let's open this up. Veena Sikri, former diplomat here in India, joins us. Faraz Saeed, senior journalist from Pakistan, is with us, and senior journalist at Balochistan Post, Bahut Baloch, is with us as well. Let me begin by asking you, Mr. Baloch, what is it that the Baloch Liberation Army is expecting to get out of this audacious attack that we've seen? It's been over 28 hours. There are still many hostages that they have with them.
मेरी आवाज आ रही?
जी सर, आपकी आवाज़ आ रही है। 28 घंटे हो चुके हैं, अभी भी काफ़ी सारे लोग बलोच लिबरेशन आर्मी के गिरफ्त में हैं। क्या चाह रही है बलोच लिबरेशन आर्मी? क्या लगता है उनको हासिल होगा इस अटैक के बाद?
देखिए, बिल्कुल 24 घंटे गुजर चुके हैं और 200 से ज़ायद जो ऑस्ट्रेजेस है बीएलए के तहवील में हैं, जिनमें से अक्सरियत फौजी एहलकार है और जिनमें मेजर रैंक के भी ऑफिसर्स है, कैप्टन रैंक के भी ऑफिसर्स है। ये सब जा रहे थे, छुट्टियां गुजार कर जा रहे थे पंजाब की जानिब, रावलपिंडी, इस्लामाबाद इस जानिब जा रहे थे। सिचुएशन ये है कि बीएलए की जानिब से ताज़ा तरीन अभी एक बयान आया है जिनका कहना है कि पाकिस्तान ऑस्ट्रेजेस के हवाले से सीरियस नहीं है। वो भरपूर फौजी ताकत का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, जिसके बायस वो खतरे में डाल रहे हैं इनकी जानों को। और उन्होंने वाज़ेह किया कि हम तो इंसानी हकूक़ की जो आलमी कवानीन है, उस हवाले से हमने एक पेशकश की थी कि ऑस्ट्रेजेस के हवाले से जो कैदियों का तबादला है उसके लिए राज़ी है, लेकिन पाकिस्तान आर्मी की जानिब से मुसलसल फौजी ऑपरेशन, वहाँ पर गनशिप हेलीकॉप्टर, जेट तैयारी या के जो ड्रोन तैयारी हैं वो डिप्लॉय किए गए हैं, जिसके बायस मजीद सिर्फ 24 घंटे बचते हैं। अगर उस पर अमल दरामद नहीं होता है तो फिर हम एग्जीक्यूट करना शुरू करेंगे। और उन्होंने कहा कि फिर ये पूरा एक प्रोसेस है हमारा, जो बलोच कौमी अदालत के तहत जो मिलिटेंट्स अपने उनकी एक है तरीक़ाकार, उस हवाले से उन पे केसेस चलाए जाएंगे और उनको एग्जीक्यूट किया जाएगा।
बट ये जो 48 आवर का अल्टीमेटम दिया गया है, जैसे आप भी बता रहे हैं कि अब 24 घंटे और बचे हैं, पाकिस्तानी आर्मी या पाकिस्तानी सरकार लग नहीं रहा कि पीछे हटेंगे, तो ये जो हॉस्टेजेस बचे हुए हैं, जो पैसेंजर्स थे उस ट्रेन पर, क्या उनकी जान को दावे पे रखना, इज दैट राइट? दैट्स आल्सो अ क्वेश्चन दैट मेनी आर आस्किंग। इज दैट समथिंग दैट द बीएलए हैज आंसर्ड?
बिल्कुल, देखिए इस हवाले से यही डिस्कशन चल रहे हैं। एज जर्नलिस्ट हम भी यही कह रहे हैं कि एक बेहतरीन ऑप्शन नहीं है कि आपके ऑस्ट्रेजेस उनके हाथ में है, आपके बंदे उनके हाथ में है, आप ऑपरेशन करें, आप डायलॉग की तरफ जाएंगे। उन्होंने तो वाज़ेह तौर पर कहा है कि हम डायलॉग चाहते हैं कि जो कैदियों का तबादला है इस हवाले से, लेकिन पाकिस्तान स्टेट की जानिब से कोई पेशरफ नहीं है कि अभी तक कोई इजलास, कोई बात अभी तक उन्होंने नहीं की है। वो सिर्फ इसी पे चीज़ों को प्रोपेगेट करना, मीडिया में थोड़ा बड़ा चढ़ा के, या कि जो मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन, इस तरह की चीज़ें। एज मैं ग्राउंड से ताल्लुक़ रखता हूँ, मुझे मालूम है कि क्या हो रहा है, तो बहुत सी मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन, इस तरह की चीज़ों में अपने लोगों को इंगेज कर रहे हैं। और बीएलए की स्टेटमेंट में भी यही है कि वो सिर्फ इंगेज करना चाहते हैं कि ऑपरेशन हो रही है, ये वगैरह इस तरह की चीजें। बहरहाल बीएलए की जानिब से एक उनके लिए अच्छा मौका है अगर वो डायलॉग करना चाहते हैं। लेकिन पाकिस्तान की माजी के अगर हम जाए तो माजी में भी इस तरह के एक दो वाकयात हुए थे। कर्नल लई को ले जाया गया था बीएलए की जानिब से, उस वक्त भी इन्होंने बड़े पैमाने की एक ऑपरेशन की थी जिसके बायस वो मारा गया। उसमें भी एक हो सकती थी कि कैदियों का तबादला हो सके इस बार भी। लेकिन यहाँ पर एक बात तो वाज़ेह है कि 200 के करीब, 200 से जायद लोग यरगमाल है, जिनमें से फौजी एहलकार और दीगर है। लेकिन स्टेट की जानिब से कोई सीरियस पेशरफ देखने में नहीं आई है।
जी जी बिल्कुल फराज Saeed, but let me ask you this. Like I said at the beginning of the show, the narrative seems to change depending on who you're asking. The Pakistani army feels that they have the advantage over this, that they have the operation under control and that several of these insurgents have been killed. The BLA says that's not true and the story is the other way around. There may be a lot of misinformation. We're not going to know until the situation is diffused completely. But what do you think explains that 28 hours later, the Pakistani army and the administration has not been able to get things under control?
Poonam, we have to make one thing absolutely clear. It is the state versus terror outfit. It is not two states fighting against each other. It is the state fighting against the terror outfit who have held about 400 people hostage. 190 have been released. 200 are still under their custody. So it is the state fighting against the terror outfit. So claiming that somehow BLA wants to negotiate, BLA has the upper ground, BLA has its own laws, it is absolutely absurd to even talk about it, that there is some kind of laws that a terrorist outfit would establish, and they would somehow use their own particular laws to negotiate with the army of a state. So we have to make this one thing absolutely clear. Baloch Liberation Army is a terrorist outfit. It attacked the national railway which was going from Balochistan, from Quetta to Peshawar. It is a terrorist organization. It carried out a terrorist operation, and it will be dealt with the force, one way or the other. Of course, the Pakistan military is trying its best to navigate in a very cautious manner, because again 200 civilians are still unaccounted for, and they have to make sure that each and every civilian of Pakistan will be secured. However, there is not going to be any kind of negotiation with the terrorist organization which attacks Pakistani citizens or Pakistan installation. That has to be absolutely clear. No representative of any terrorist organization is in any capacity to dictate rules to the Pakistani state. We have to make this absolutely clear. And these laws, these norms, and these precedences are clear for every nation state. This is not out of the blue, which I am talking about, or which the Pakistani state would talk about. These narratives, these precedences are clear for every nation state. Terrorist, no nation state can negotiate with them. And specifically when they have held 180 civilians hostage at a time. I mean, it's absolutely absurd to even hear about terrorist organizations' claims, or even whatever they want to say.
Sure. So no negotiations. That's the path the government wants to take. But militarily, it doesn't look like they have the upper hand, because like I said, 28 hours on, there are still over 100 hostages in the Liberation Army's custody. But Veena Sikri, how do you read this entire situation? Is this something that does put the Pakistani government, the administration, in a spot in the sense that they didn't see this coming? The BLA has been ratcheting up their attacks over the last few years. We would say perhaps this is the most audacious attack we've seen in the recent past, to take so many innocent civilians, to take so many Pakistani army personnel hostage. And the Pakistani army or the government didn't see it coming.
Yeah, it is a very serious situation, and as you have pointed out, it's not a new situation. The position of the Balochistan, the BLA, the Balochistan Liberation Army, had been clear for many decades, and I can say that this situation has been brewing since 1948 practically. So I think the first thing is that the people of Balochistan, they seem to feel that they do not have control over their own resources, and that the benefits of whatever development is taking place is not coming to the people of Balochistan. I think this is a point that they have been making again and again and again. So I think this is an issue that is in the first place, this is the issue for negotiation between the central government of Pakistan and the people of Balochistan, as represented either by the people in the assembly or by the various organizations. Now, it is true that the action that has been taken by the Balochistan Liberation Army has also affected citizens of China, and they also have been affected because this Gwadar port development that is taking place. The people of Balochistan do not find employment there, and you have people coming from Punjab, Sindh, and even from China to work there, and there is absolutely no role or any situation for the people of that area. So I think this is a question which has to be negotiated with the people of Balochistan, and their regrets, their concerns. Is something that the state of Pakistan has to take on board and find a solution that meets the interests and the needs of the people of Balochistan for development of their own area, because after all, every person, every people, they want to share in the growth of the country, to share in the growth of the various whatever is happening in that part of in Balochistan and in the rest of Pakistan. So I think this is a very important point, and discussions, dialogue, this is the way forward. Of course, it has to be. Now, of course, the question about this very large and serious attack on the train crisis, the hostage crisis, I think it seems to involve a large number of Pakistan Army officers as well. And this is perhaps for the first time that you're seeing that such a large number of Pakistan Army officers, apart from soldiers, are involved in this. So this is, of course, a matter of great concern. It is perhaps the most serious attack of its kind to have taken place in many years in the area.
Right.
And I do hope that the concerns of the BLA and the people of Balochistan will be taken on board and will be looked at by the people of Pakistan, by the state of Pakistan, and that a peaceful resolution will come to this. Because I think that attacking state property and so on is terrible. The loss of life is terrible, and this is a very difficult situation for any country to face. But we have to also take on board that the repeated ignoring of the concerns of the people of Balochistan, their continuing poverty, their lack of participation in the development process, their lack of benefit from the tremendous resources of this very, very large and very, very well endowed state of Pakistan.
And like you said, this has been brewing for decades together, since 1948, yes, since they felt betrayed by the founding fathers like Muhammad Ali Jinnah, back then when independence was granted to Pakistan. But Faraz Saeed, you said that we don't negotiate with terrorists, so we will not talk with the Baloch Liberation Army. That's the stance of the state government. That's the stance of the state there, the government of Pakistan. But should dialogue have happened, should negotiations have happened for all these years, then maybe the situation wouldn't have arisen in the first place.
I mean, there have been multiple dialogues, series of dialogues over decades and decades. I've been regurgitating the fact that despite the fact that we've hated military establishment for the past many years, them ruling over Pakistan, but it was Zia, the worst martial law administrator ever in Pakistan's history. It was Zia who forgave all the Baloch insurgents cases during his reign to start afresh. But even then, those Sardars, those terrorists, those rebels decided not to negotiate with the Federation government, not to enter into the national reconciliation. Rather, they took up the arms. So even the worst kind of martial law administrator offered them a chance for peace even during 70s and 80s. But then the situation has always been worse. Those people who've been taking up the arms, we cannot negotiate with them. And I would also want to clarify one thing. I mean, the way it is being portrayed that how Baloch people or the Baloch residents or the Baloch nationals are disenfranchised, their resources are not being used for them. We have to understand that Balochistan has its own legislative assembly. They have their own representatives. They have the control over their own resources. And we also have to understand that Pakistan is a federation. The central government has the control over across the provinces. Each province has its own legal binding, and they control and they rule over their own provinces according to the representation that is given to the legislative assemblies. So the notion that somehow Baloch people are disenfranchised there is discrimination against them. This is a fact that there has been a history of not mainstreaming Baloch people. They have been neglected, but in the recent past, there have been billions and billions of rupees worth of packages for the development, for the upliftment. And I must also mention here that a lot of Baloch students graduate from universities in Punjab, KPK, Sindh. They have special quotas for them to, if there has been disenfranchisement in the past, the government, the state, the other provinces are trying to make it up for them. But picking up arms against the state in the modern nation states, that cannot be tolerated and that cannot be accepted. I mean, imagine BLS taking hostage 200 people and then wanting to clear up demands with the federation. I mean, that is absolutely unacceptable.
Sure, the state may say it's unacceptable, but like I said, it's been going on for decades together. How is it that the state or the army or the ISI didn't see this coming, and why were they not prepared? If this has been brewing for decades together, there has to be a better strategy that after all these decades, the army, the ISI has put in place.
Also, I think, if I may add one point, here.
Yes, Veena Sikri, go ahead.
There is a lot of talk about this Legislative Assembly of Balochistan and so on, but we do know what the federal structure of Pakistan really means. It's the army control. I mean, the civilian authorities, we know, whether it is, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or Balochistan or Sindh or any other village, we know that they really feel they have no power at all. It's the army which controls the entire situation. I mean, it's the, this is a state with an army. It's an army which has a state. It's not a state with an army. So that is why legislative powers are very weak. And that is why all these
problems. And that's something Baloch activists have been raising on global platforms all these years as well. It's not just about picking up arms. But Faraz Saeed, the question that I asked you.
I mean, we've had Baloch leaders like Maharang Baloch who have marched onto capital, Maharang type of the people, Baloch leaders who have emerged lately. Their voices are being heard. Their voices are echo in the power chambers. Of course, it is the decades and decades of disenfranchisement which has happened. But in the past 20 to 30 years, there has been a change. There has been an evolution. There has been kind of development that they wanted. But if you enter into a terror organization, if you want to rebel against the state, the infrastructure of the state, then there has to be consequences. You cannot get away without any consequences along with taking up the arms against the state. That is like the principle over here. I mean, there are disenfranchisement. Do you think if there is a rising unemployment in US or Canada, they'll pick up the arms against the state? That is not going to be the scene here. Only because it is happening in Balochistan and some of the rebels are taking up the arms against the state.
Sure, but they've taken up arms. But they've taken up arms, like I said, for decades. Why is it that we saw a situation like this? Why did the Pakistani army or the ISI did not see this coming?
I mean, imagine despite the fact that Pakistan army has the capacity to bomb those terrorists out, but because they hide behind the civilians, they hide behind the innocent civilians. So Pakistan army cannot go into the civilian area to to carry out those operations. So they have to tread very carefully, which is why these insurgents have been there. They have been blossoming over there because again they hide behind the shield of civilians. And we cannot kill our civilians. We have to ensure that there is safety for our civilians, which is what is happening in today in Bolan. Pakistan army has the capacity to bomb the shit out of those terrorists who are holding the civilians hostage. However, because those 200 civilians are Pakistanis, it is their duty to protect each and every soul which is being held by those hostages. Pakistani army cannot bomb the entire area.
Sure.
I mean, it is easy to cast a bomb.
But it's been over 24 hours. Maybe there was a way out. Veena Sikri, is that argument something that you buy, or do you think this is just a manifestation of the failure of the army and the administration, successive governments in Pakistan as well?
No, absolutely. I spoke about the very weak federal. There's a lot of, you can say a lot on paper about the so-called federal structure in Pakistan. But why is it that in all the states of components of this federal structure, there are rebellions? Whether it is Sindh, whether it is Balochistan, whether it is Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we've seen so much rebellion. So there must be something. They're rebelling against the army control of the state. They're rebelling against it because people feel they don't have an expression of their own rights and duties, and they want to participate in the development. development. So there is no answer for that from what your panelist has said. That why is it that the concern persists? Why is it they're not getting jobs? Why is it that there's so much poverty in Balochistan? And why is it that that China has come in as a third country and Pakistan is willing to have special divisions of the army to protect the Chinese, but not to talk to the Baluchis and bring
So
them
to
on
say the
board.
very least, it does leave the Pakistani government, the army, the administration in an embarrassing position, given the scale of this particular attack that has happened. But Bahad Baloch, I want to give you last 30 seconds before I wrap this up. जब ये 48 hours का time frame खत्म हो जाएगा कल, उसके बाद आगे क्या? If the administration does not agree to the demands that the Baloch Liberation Army is making, हम क्या expect कर रहे हैं? क्या होगा?
एक्सपेक्ट यही कर रहे हैं कि वो मार दिए जाएंगे, और जैसे कि उन्होंने एक फार्मूला तय किया है अपना कि हम इनको अदालत में, अपनी बलोच कौमी अदालत में पेश करके उन पे केसेस चलाएंगे, उनको एग्जीक्यूट करते जाएंगे। फिर ये एक तेज तरीन इनका लाजिम है, फौजी एहलकार है, उनको सबको मालूम है आप कहाँ पर डिप्लॉय हुए हैं। मैं बलोचिस्तान की फिलहाल जगह पर ऑपरेशंस में हिस्सा लिया है, जी बिल्कुल लिया है। घरों को जलाया है, जी बिल्कुल जलाया है। लोगों को कत्ल किया है, लाशें फेंकी हैं, जी बिल्कुल किया है, एग्जीक्यूट। तो इस तरह इनका फार्मूला चलता है और क्लियर है। जिस तरह दुनिया भर में देखे जाते हैं कि ऑस्ट्रेजेस और जो डील्स होते हैं, यानी कैदियों का तबादला, ये कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है। बलूचिस्तान में पहली बार नहीं हो रही है, बलूचिस्तान में पहली बार, दुनिया में पहली बार ऐसी डिमांड नहीं है। हालिया दिनों फलस्तीन में हुआ, जो इसराइल के साथ हुआ, उन्होंने भी फौज ऑप्शन वगैरह सब कुछ, अफगानिस्तान में सब कुछ हुआ है। जो उनकी अभी रिजीम चेंज हुए है, जो उनके कैदी थे ग्वांतानामो बे से भी रिहा हो रहे हैं। तो इसमें क्या मसला है? यहाँ तक कि पाकिस्तान में शुमाली वजीरिस्तान में फौजियों की लाशों के बदले कैदी रिहा किए गए हैं। तो बलूचिस्तान के वक्त क्यों इस तरह की कि हम बम्बारमेंट करके सिविलियंस है या कि फौजी है, आप बम्बारमेंट करके उनको कैसे रिहा कर सकते हैं?
So at the time it seems like it's a my way or highway sort of a situation as far as both sides of the fence are concerned. Where does that leave this crisis and those 100-odd people that are still in captivity of the Liberation Army? And if this fire spreads or continues, what more will it engulf? That's something that India needs to be wary of as well, given that it is happening right in our neighborhood. But unfortunately, I have to leave it there. I thank you all for joining us here on this edition of Plain Speak.